Gretchen Harrington was born on June 13, 1967, in Pennsylvania, the youngest of 3 daughters. Her loving and dedicated parents were thrilled with the arrival of another girl to complete their family. Shortly after her birth, the family moved to the small town of Bumo, where her father took up the position of pastor at the local church. It was in this picturesque and welcoming town that Gretchen would spend most of her short life. From an early age, Gretchen showed herself to be a cheerful and curious child. Her eyes sparkled with excitement at every new discovery, and she was always eager to explore the world around her. The small town of Bumo, with its quiet, tree-lined streets, offered a perfect setting for her adventures. Gretchen quickly adapted to her new routine, making friends and exploring the nearby woods and rivers with her sisters and schoolmates. The close-knit and peaceful community seemed like a true paradise, especially for such a lively child. Faith played a central role in Gretchen and her family's life. Raised in a deeply religious home, she attended the church where her father preached and was an exemplary student in Sunday school. Her commitment to religious studies was admirable. She always strove to get the best grades, actively participating in classes and eagerly learning about biblical stories. Her teachers and peers admired her for her dedication and generous spirit. On August 15, 1975, when Gretchen was just 8 years old, the tranquil routine of the Harrington family was interrupted by a significant event: the return of her mother and new baby sister from the hospital. The house was filled with anticipation and joy at the arrival of the new family member. Gretchen desperately wanted to stay home to meet her sister, but her father, concerned about her attendance at Sunday school, encouraged her not to miss class. Reluctantly but obediently, Gretchen grabbed her Bible, gave her father a quick kiss, and left for church, not realizing that this morning would be unlike any other. Gretchen walked alone that morning. Her sisters, who usually accompanied her, stayed home to help prepare for their mother's and baby's arrival. However, Gretchen wasn't afraid. The church was less than a mile away, and the small town had always been a safe place. With determined steps, she followed her usual path, unaware that the shadow of danger was closing in. That simple and familiar walk would soon become the beginning of a dark mystery that would haunt the Bumo community for decades. As the first rays of sun lit up the streets of Bumo, no one could have predicted that this small town, known for its peace and serenity, was about to face a tragedy that would leave deep scars on all its residents. Gretchen Harrington, with her innocence and joy, would be remembered not just as a victim, but as a symbol of a community united by the relentless pursuit of justice and truth. Welcome to Spooky Stories. I'm Milo, your guide through the chilling and the unknown. Here, we dive into terrifying tales that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Join our community of thrill seekers, and let's explore the darkness together. Gretchen Harrington, an 8-year-old girl, woke up on that August morning with a mix of excitement and joy. Her mother was in the hospital, ready to come home with her newborn sister, and the thought of meeting the new family member filled her heart with excitement. However, her father, a dedicated pastor, insisted that she not miss Sunday school to maintain her perfect grades. With a resigned sigh, Gretchen took her Bible, dressed in her impeccable uniform, and left home. The 8-minute walk to the church seemed safe and familiar, but that morning, familiarity would hide a terrible danger. As she walked down the tree-lined street, Gretchen didn't notice the figure watching her from afar. The sound of birds singing and the rustle of leaves in the wind provided a false sense of security. With each step, the small town of Bumo, known for its tranquility, became more threatening than ever. At 11:30 a.m., when the children arrived at the second church for the continuation of classes, Gretchen's father immediately noticed her absence. He checked with Pastor David Zanstra's wife, but Gretchen hadn't even attended the first class. Panic filled his heart, and he began a frantic search for his daughter, driving through familiar streets and asking everyone he met. News of Gretchen's disappearance spread quickly through the town. Within hours, hundreds of volunteers joined the search, scouring every corner of Bumo and its surrounding areas. The trust the community had in the safety of their streets was shattered. Parents, who once allowed their children to play freely until dusk, now kept a constant watch, fearing that Gretchen's disappearance was just the beginning of a wave of terror. As night fell, hopes of finding her diminished, but no one was willing to give up easily. The town that once seemed like a paradise had become a labyrinth of fears and unanswered questions. The morning after Gretchen's disappearance, the air was heavy with a mixture of fear and determination. Volunteers, now more numerous, spread out into wooded areas and riverbanks, while the police distributed flyers with the girl's photo. The searches were meticulous, every bush and stone turned, but there was no sign of Gretchen. The community, once united by faith and mutual trust, was now fragmented by suspicion and despair. Theories about Gretchen's whereabouts ranged from an impulsive runaway to a tragic accident in the river, but the most terrifying thought was that she had been abducted. Pastor David Zanstra became a central figure in the investigation. He was the last known adult to see Gretchen before her Sunday school class, and, as the father of one of Gretchen's closest friends, his concern seemed genuine. However, some inconsistencies in his statement began to raise suspicions. He accurately described the clothes Gretchen wore that morning, despite claiming not to have seen her. This detail, initially overlooked, began to seem increasingly sinister as the searches continued without success. Days turned into weeks, and as time passed, the hope of finding Gretchen alive began to fade. The police continued to question residents, including Zanstra, but there was no concrete evidence pointing to a culprit. Fear and distrust permeated every conversation, and the small town of Bumo, once known for its pastoral tranquility, was now a place of fear and mystery. Gretchen, a girl who loved playing outdoors and attending her father's church, became a symbol of the loss of innocence and safety for the entire community. 2 months had passed since Gretchen Harrington's disappearance, and the hope of finding her alive had all but faded. The town of Bumo was still reeling from the shock, its residents clinging to the fragile belief that perhaps, against all odds, Gretchen might still return home. However, on October 14, 1975, a chilling discovery would shatter any remaining hope and plunge the community into deeper despair. It was a brisk autumn morning when a man, out for his routine jog in Ridley Creek State Park, noticed something unusual among the dense underbrush. Initially dismissing it as nothing more than an animal carcass, curiosity compelled him to take a closer look. As he approached, the realization of what he was seeing hit him with a cold, paralyzing clarity. It was the body of a child, partially covered by leaves and branches. The man ran to the nearest park ranger station, breathless and panicked, to report what he had found. The police were alerted immediately. Officers arrived swiftly at the scene, their faces grim as they surveyed the area. The body was in an advanced state of decomposition, making identification a daunting task. However, the sight of neatly folded clothes next to the remains provided a critical clue. They carefully collected the clothing and, with heavy hearts, contacted Gretchen's parents. The clothes were shown to her mother, who confirmed the worst. She had sewn those clothes herself for her daughter. The news of the discovery spread through Bumo like wildfire. The collective grief of the community was palpable as parents clutched their children tighter, and tears flowed freely at the loss of innocence that Gretchen's death symbolized. The police, now more determined than ever, reclassified the case as a homicide and redoubled their efforts to find the perpetrator. Forensic experts were called in to examine the remains, and it was soon confirmed through dental records that the body was indeed Gretchen Harrington's. The forensic examination revealed that Gretchen had died from multiple severe blows to the head, indicating a brutal and violent end. Due to the level of decomposition, they could not determine if there had been any sexual assault, and with the limitations of forensic technology in 1975, no foreign DNA samples could be identified. This lack of concrete evidence left the investigators with few leads and many unanswered questions. The discovery reignited a wave of fear and anger throughout Bumo. The community, once a bastion of safety and peace, was now haunted by the knowledge that a predator had walked among them undetected. Parents who once let their children roam freely now kept them under constant watch. The police, inundated with tips and leads, struggled to separate valuable information from the noise of a panicked town. Suspicion and paranoia seeped into daily life, and every stranger was viewed with wary eyes. Time passed slowly since the discovery of Gretchen's body, and the town of Bumo, despite its daily routines, was never the same. Children no longer played freely in the streets, and whispered conversations about the possible murderer became more frequent. The police, although exhausted and frustrated, continued to investigate each clue diligently. It was in this atmosphere of uncertainty that two journalists, Joanna and Mike, decided to delve deeply into the case. Determined to bring new information to light, Joanna and Mike, both natives of Bumo and contemporaries of Gretchen, felt the impact of the crime in their own lives. They grew up with the constant fear that something similar could happen to them. As adults, they decided to write a book about the case, an attempt to find answers that the police hadn't been able to provide. For years, they combed through archives, interviewed former residents, and revisited locations associated with the crime. Their investigations brought new perspectives and eventually led to an unexpected contact. A woman with a horrifying story to tell. The woman, who was 10 years old at the time of the crime, remembered a disturbing incident involving Pastor David Zanstra. She revealed that while sleeping over at the house of two friends, she was awakened by Zanstra entering the room and touching her inappropriately. Frightened, she told her friends, who confirmed that Zanstra's behavior was frequent. This shocking revelation added a new layer of suspicion about the pastor, and the police decided to reopen the case with renewed vigor, focusing their investigations on Zanstra and his dark past. With the new information in hand, detectives intensified their investigations into David Zanstra. They discovered that he had moved to another state just months after Gretchen's disappearance, a coincidence that now seemed suspicious. They also learned that Zanstra owned a car matching the description of the vehicle seen near the church on the day of the disappearance. Armed with this evidence, the detectives decided to confront Zanstra directly. In July 2023, detectives traveled to Georgia to interrogate Zanstra, now 83 years old. During the interrogation, he initially denied any involvement, but when confronted with the sexual abuse accusations made by the woman and the possibility of other victims, he broke down. Finally, after 48 years of silence, Zanstra confessed to the murder of Gretchen Harrington. He described how he approached her on the morning of her disappearance, offering her a ride. Trusting him, Gretchen got into the car, but instead of taking her to the church, he drove her to a deserted park where he brutally attacked her. Zanstra's confession brought a grim relief to the Bumo community. The pastor, who for years had been a respected and trusted figure, revealed himself to be a monstrous predator. His arrest not only brought a measure of justice to Gretchen's family, but also raised the possibility of other victims over the years. The police now face the monumental task of reviewing old cases and investigating the extent of Zanstra's crimes, hoping to bring peace to other families who might have suffered in silence. The revelation of Zanstra's guilt was a devastating blow to the Bumo community. Those who knew him as a dedicated pastor now faced the reality that he was a murderer and an abuser. The trust that residents had placed in the church and its figures of authority was irreparably shaken. Parents, who once trusted in the safety of their children, now wondered how many other dark secrets might be hidden in plain sight. Zanstra's trial became a major event, not just for the small town of Bumo, but also for the national media. The details of his predatory behavior and the brutality of his crimes were shocking and disturbing. The community, though relieved to finally find the culprit, struggled to reconcile the image of the pastor they knew with the horrifying reality of his actions. The church, once a refuge of faith and safety, became a symbol of betrayal and fear. As the police continued to investigate other possible victims of Zanstra, the town of Bumo tried to rebuild its sense of safety and community. Journalists Joanna and Mike, whose investigations were crucial to solving the case, continued to work on their book, determined to tell Gretchen's full story and bring to light all the dark details that had been hidden for so long. For Gretchen's family, Zanstra's confession brought a measure of closure, but the pain of losing a daughter in such a brutal manner would never be fully healed. With Zanstra's arrest, the Bumo police began revisiting other unsolved cases, looking for connections to the pastor. They discovered that over the years, there had been several reports of disappearances and abuses in areas where Zanstra had served. While many of these reports were not taken seriously at the time, they now formed a disturbing pattern. Modern DNA technology, unavailable in the 1970s, now offered new hope of identifying other victims and bringing more justice. One of the most promising investigations involved the disappearance of Amanda Campbell, a 4-year-old girl from California. Like Gretchen, Amanda had disappeared from a quiet neighborhood while walking alone. At the time, Zanstra was serving as a pastor in the same area. Although there was no conclusive evidence linking Zanstra to the case yet, the similarities were enough to justify further investigation. The possibility that Zanstra could be involved in other crimes brought a new wave of fear and sadness to those who had already suffered the loss of loved ones. As investigations continued, the story of Gretchen Harrington and Zanstra's confession became a case study in criminology, illustrating how seemingly unsolvable crimes can be resolved with perseverance and new technologies. The Bumo community, though still dealing with pain and distrust, began finding ways to honor Gretchen's memory. Memorials were erected in her name, and community initiatives were created to protect and educate children about safety. Although Gretchen Harrington's case was resolved, the pain of her loss continued to echo through the Bumo community. However, the determination to ensure that such a tragedy never happened again brought new unity among residents. Community safety programs were established, and the church, under new leadership, actively worked to rebuild trust. Gretchen's memory became a symbol of resilience and hope, inspiring the town to come together and protect its most vulnerable. Zanstra's arrest and confession also brought a measure of peace to other potential victims. The relentless work of detectives, now armed with Zanstra's confession and DNA technology, began offering answers to families who had lived in uncertainty for decades. Each new case solved, each new victim identified, was a step towards justice and healing. The lessons learned from Gretchen's case served as a powerful reminder of the importance of community vigilance and the need to never give up in the pursuit of truth. For Joanna and Mike, the publication of their book was not just the culmination of years of hard work, but also a tribute to a childhood friend whose life was tragically cut short. The book, now a bestseller, brought new attention to the case and encouraged other communities to revisit unsolved cases. Gretchen Harrington's story, though filled with pain and loss, became a beacon of hope and determination, reminding everyone that justice may be delayed, but it should never be abandoned. Conclusion: the legacy of Gretchen Harrington. At the end of this harrowing and revealing journey, we are reminded of a powerful truth. The fight for justice must never be abandoned, even in the face of the most daunting obstacles. Gretchen Harrington's story is not just a tale of tragedy, but a testament to human determination and the relentless pursuit of truth. This pursuit finally exposed the true culprit and brought a measure of peace to a shattered community. Now, I want to make you think, how many times do we fail to question what is around us, believing blindly in apparent safety? Are we truly attentive to the signs of danger around us? And more importantly, are we willing to fight for justice and truth, even when the path seems impossible? You have the power to make a difference. Don't let fear or complacency cloud your judgment. Question, investigate, and above all, protect those who cannot protect themselves. Gretchen's story teaches us that with perseverance and courage, we can bring hidden truths to light and transform our communities for the better. And now, a provocative question. What can you do today to ensure that Gretchen's story does not repeat in your community? Is it time to get more actively involved in your neighborhood's safety, to question authorities, and to be more alert to the signs around you? If this story touched you in any way, if you feel it's time to act and make a difference, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Activate notifications to keep following impactful stories and learning more about how we can together make the world a safer and fairer place. Every story is an opportunity for learning and transformation. We count on you in this journey. Don't forget to leave your comments below. We want to know your opinion about Gretchen Harrington's case and hear your ideas on how we can protect our communities. Your voice matters, and together we can make a difference. Thank you for watching. Until next time, meet Sarah. Like many of us, she used to dread bedtime. Hours spent tossing and turning, waking up groggy and irritable, and worst of all, her relentless snoring that not only disturbed her sleep, but her partner's as well. Desperate for a solution, Sarah tried everything. New mattresses, white noise machines, even sleeping pills. Nothing worked until she discovered our breathing for sleep routine. One particularly frustrating night, Sarah stumbled upon an article about the power of breathing to improve sleep. Skeptical but willing to try anything, she read about our breathing for sleep routine. A simple, scientifically backed method designed to clear sinuses, enhance breathing, and eliminate oxygen blockades. It promised to guide users through a simple breathing routine for the best sleep of their lives. Intrigued, she decided to give it a shot. As she began the routine, Sarah immediately felt her sinuses clear. She followed the step-by-step guide, learning how to breathe deeply and correctly. Within minutes, she noticed a significant difference. Her breathing was smoother, more relaxed. That night, she fell asleep faster than she had in years and, incredibly, stayed asleep all night. One of the most astonishing benefits was the end of her snoring. The routine included a simple breathing hack that stopped her snoring in minutes. Sarah learned that her habit of mouth breathing was activating her survival mode, preventing her from achieving truly restful sleep. By switching to nasal breathing, she deactivated this mode and allowed her body to fully relax. The next morning, Sarah woke up feeling refreshed and rejuvenated. She couldn't remember the last time she felt so well rested. Her partner noticed the difference too. No more middle-of-the-night disruptions from her snoring. The transformation was remarkable, and Sarah knew she had found something special. Sarah's story is not unique. Many others have discovered the life-changing benefits of our breathing for sleep routine. Imagine falling asleep quickly, sleeping soundly through the night, and waking up feeling fully rested. No more snoring, no more grogginess, just deep, restorative sleep. Are you ready to transform your sleep like Sarah did? Our breathing for sleep routine is easy to follow and starts working immediately. Clear your sinuses, enhance your breathing, and remove oxygen blockades with our guided routine. Say goodbye to snoring and hello to the best sleep of your life. Check out the link for this wonder in the description and the comments.